back with another video for my NICU series. So today I'm going to be talking about codes and being on the code team in the NICU. When you work in the hospital, you may hear several codes go off, and each code has like their own special color and meaning, but today I'm just going to be talking about the most common ones that we have in the NICU. So our most common ones would be code blue, which would be like a medical emergency, so our patients are having like a cardiac or respiratory arrest. We may also see, well, I've never seen a code pink, but it's important to know code pink is when a child or an infant is being abducted, and then code stork is basically when a pregnant woman needs serious medical attention, so maybe like she is going into labor or something serious is going on, so it's something that we may also have to attend. Where I work, when our codes go off, sometimes we'll usually hear them on the overhead speakers, or sometimes it'll just go to our phones. So our unit is supposed to be going silent. Well, they were supposed to a couple of weeks ago, meaning that they weren't going to do the overhead codes anymore because one, they're very loud, and in the NICU, you know, it's supposed to be quiet for our patients, and number two, sometimes when they make those announcements overhead, we can't really hear them, or the person making the announcement may make a mistake, and you know, it's not great. So it's better to have them on our phones. So usually whenever a code goes off for us, our phones will go off with a special ringtone, and then on the screen it will say code, and it will tell us where the code is. And obviously when you work in the NICU, it's very important for you to know obviously where the code buttons are, when to press them, and also it's important to obviously be NRP certified, so that in case something does go on, you know how to resuscitate your patient. So each of our beds do have like a little code button next to them. So if your patient is coding, you just lift up the little switch and press the code button, and then it'll make this alarm go off and like a little light will flash, so that way people know where to go to help out with the code. Hey guys, so I'm about to edit this video, and I just remembered that I forgot to say something. Like every time I film, I always forget something, and I'm like, oh. But anyways, so if there's ever a time when you're not sure whether or not you should hit the code button, it's better to just hit it, because it's better to be safe than sorry. You'd rather have the extra help at the bedside and not need it, rather than to not have help when you need it. And I've heard stories about people getting, like people on the code team getting mad for like the nurse hitting the code button when they really didn't need to, so like they go all the way over there for no reason, and that's just the dumbest thing ever. Like, don't ever let anyone make you feel bad about that, because it's better to be safe than sorry. And if someone ever does get mad at you for that, make sure you set it straight. You tell them that they should not be mad at you, they should just be glad that the patient is safe. Or if you don't tell them, talk to their supervisor, because their supervisor will set them straight, okay? Like, we're all there to save the patient, so there's never a reason for someone to get mad that they had to take 2 minutes out of their day to check on a patient, you know. The NICU where I work is divided into pods, so just different rooms, and each room has a certain number of patients in it. And so each pod has a code cart, and code carts are basically little carts on wheels, and they have all these different drawers, and they have everything that you may need during the code. So we have flushes, intubation supplies, emergency meds, like literally everything you need for the code. And so these are locked, and every month we are supposed to, you know, check everything, make sure nothing's expired, and it just gives us a way to make sure that we remember where everything is located, just in case there is a code, so we're not like fumbling through the entire cart trying to find something. It helps us, you know, just know where everything is already. And so like I said, these carts are usually locked, so if a code does go off, you just like literally pop it open, you break that little lock, and then you grab whatever you need to help out your patient. Another important thing to know is that each patient has what we call a code sheet. So it's a little sheet that basically has different weights and different medications and doses for each medication. So you have to make sure that code sheet is updated at the beginning of your shift. And so it's basically like a little chart, and so you have to highlight your patient's weight and then the medication dose that corresponds to that weight. So if there is a code, you just look at that code sheet and you know how much of a medication to give to that patient based on their weight. So let's say your patient weighs let's say 1,500 grams. So you're going to highlight the weight that corresponds closest to that, and all the dosage for the medications that correspond to it. So like I said, when you look at it, you know how much of the medication to give to a patient. So one of the medications on that list would be like epi. So it's right there, good to go. Make sure you have it updated at all times. So let's just go through a quick example. Let's say a patient in one of the pods starts a code, so the patient's nurse hits the code button. Like I said, the little alarm will go off and the light will flash, and then one of the secretaries will say code blue and pod blink. So that'll tell everybody where to go. Also, our phones will beep and it'll say code, and it'll tell them, you know, which pod and bed spot the patient is in. Now let's say there's a code that's not on our unit. So let's say there's a code stork. On the overhead speaker, they'll say code stork main lobby or code stork ED. So that'll let you know that you have to go to the ED if you're on the code team and help out with that. So you really just want to rush and go. There may even be like a code in labor and delivery, so in like one of their operating rooms, so they'll say code OR2 or something like that. So you have to go hurry up and run to get to that patient and help them out if you're on the code team. And speaking of the code team, let's go a little bit more into detail about that. So the way that you will know that you're on the code team is basically how you know who your assignment is for your shift. So when I get to work every day, I check the assignment sheet and I see who my patients are. If I'm on the code team, I will see a C1 or a C2 next to my name. So C1 stands for code 1 and C2 stands for code 2. So if you're in code 1, that means that if a code goes off, you guys are going to be the first ones to respond to it. And so the code team will have 3 nurses assigned to it. 2 nurses will be in charge of drawing up medications, and the 3rd nurse will be in charge of recording. So just writing down everything that happens. So like when the code starts, what medications were given, what dose it was given, the route it was given, what time it was given, all that stuff like that. The recorder writes everything down. If you are the recorder, once you're done with the code and everything's fine, you do have to do what we call a code navigator. So you have to go to that patient's chart and literally document everything. So if you're on code 2, you're going to respond to the code that happens next. So let's say it's 8 o'clock and a code goes off. So code 1 will respond to that. And let's say literally 2 minutes later, another code goes off in a different pod. The people in code 2 will respond to that one because the people in code 1 can't leave the patient that they're helping to go out to the other code. So code 2 kind of serves as a backup team to help out just in case there are more than one codes that go off at the same time. Now let's give another example. Let's say it's 10 o'clock and a code goes off. So code 1 responds to that. And let's say like 30 minutes later, the patient is stable, the code is over. So code 1 goes back to doing what they're doing. Now let's say 2 hours later, another code goes off. Code 1 is going to respond to that again. It wouldn't be code 2's turns because like I said, code 2 is just like a backup just in case there are 2 codes that go off at the same time. Now let's say a code is going off and so the code team is helping out and let's say there's, you know, parents in there with another patient. So let's say the code is going on this side of the room and then there's another patient on this side of the room whose parents are at the bedside. It's important for us to, you know, go over there and pull the curtains so that the parents aren't like, you know, staring at what's going on at the code because first of all, you know, patient confidentiality and HIPAA, we have to protect that patient's privacy. And also we don't want to freak out the parents that are visiting their babies. We don't want them to be, you know, terrified and like, oh my gosh, what's going on over there? What if this happens to my baby? So it's all about privacy and kind of keeping that fear away from them. And also I do want to point out that if a code goes off, it's obviously not just the nurses there, like the resident, attending, nurse practitioners, literally respiratory therapists, like everyone is going to come over to help out because it's a very serious situation. You know, it can be life or death, so you really do have to all work together to help out that patient. So they may end up doing like basically chest compressions or something like that. We may have to do an RSI, which stands for rapid sequence intubation. So it's a lot. It can be very scary, especially as a new nurse, but like literally everyone's going to be there to help you out. And you just have to do all that you can to help save the patient. And so I have been working on my unit for almost 1.5 years, and I literally have only had to respond to, I think, 2 codes. You can't be on the code team for the first 9 months of employment as a new grad nurse, but once you're off your probation period, which is the first 9 months, you can be on the code team. And they usually start you off on code 2 so that you're not responding to the first codes. But then after a while, they start to put you on code 1. And like I said, it can be kind of scary, especially as a new nurse. I remember the first time that I ever had to respond to a code when I was on code 1. It was actually, I don't know, a few months ago maybe. But it was like the very beginning of the shift. I was with my first patient of the night doing my first care time. I was literally feeding a baby and a code goes off. And I'm like, oh crap. So I have to jump up, put the baby back in the crib. And I'm like, I gotta go to this code. Can someone feed my baby? So I'm running. I go to the OR. I have to gown up because you have to be sterile. And in my mind, I'm freaking out. I'm like, I don't know what to do. I've never had to attend a code. I've never really seen a code. Like, why am I on the code team? I don't know what I'm doing. But thankfully, we were only there for like 3 minutes and we didn't even have to do anything. The patient was absolutely fine. So I was like, oh my gosh, thank goodness, like, because I didn't know what to do. I didn't even know if I was for meds or if I was signed up for recorder. I was just like frazzled, especially since it was at the beginning of the shift. So I actually spoke to my supervisor about that and I was like, I feel unprepared, like I don't know what to do because there's no formal training where I work to be on a code team. They kind of just put you on there and like, okay, you're code 1 or you're code 2, which, you know, didn't sit right with me. I was like, that doesn't seem safe. And so my supervisor is explaining to me, you know, this isn't something that you can really train for because first of all, we don't have codes often. And second of all, when we do have a code, it's an emergency. So they don't really have time to teach you, this is what you do, and let me show you this, and let me show you that, because you have to be moving very quickly to save the patient's life, obviously. So whenever there's a code and you're not in the code team, it's good to kind of pay attention to what they're doing, help out however you can. But like I said, there's no formal training for it. And so she was explaining that to me and I was like, well, yeah, that makes sense. But it's just unfortunately one of those things that you have to learn as you go. And so my second experience with the code, I wasn't even on the code team, but my patient coded. And it was a couple of months ago and it was like the craziest thing ever. Like, I was having such a chill shift. It was night shift. Everything was going so smoothly. And then my patient just started tanking. And I was like, something is not right. And I don't think anybody really believed me, but I was like, something is not right with my patient. And I kept getting the nurse practitioner. I was like, I know you were just in here, but can you come in here? Something is not right. And my instincts were correct. Something was not right. So, you know, I had to hit the code button and it was this big ordeal. And this code was very serious. It lasted like, gosh, it lasted like 3 hours. It was insane, but that's a story for another time. But that's just me telling you guys that you never know when a code can happen. Like, you can be having the most chill shift ever and then your patient's condition can just change like that. And then it's just hectic and it's a mess. But everything worked out. We were able to stabilize the patient. So yeah, it's just all about teamwork and paying attention to the little details. So if you feel like something isn't right with your patient, make sure you let the doctor know and make sure you like just get someone and trust your gut. If you're that patient's nurse who coded, like the example I gave about my patient coding, I had to stay after and like document everything that we did. So just that whole documenting process can take a long time too. But when it comes to nursing, remember, if it wasn't documented, it didn't happen. So that is a big part of codes too, documenting like everything. That is pretty much all that I really had to say for my general overview of codes. It's obviously not something that I can show you. I wish I could. And like I said, there's no way to really formally train someone on it in a way. So it's just one of those things, like I said, you kind of have to learn about as you go. And you really have to depend on your coworkers and really work together as a team because, like I said, it is life and death. And you have to just do all that you can to stabilize your patient and save their lives. Like, this is the part of being a nurse that's like super serious, where it's like a lot going on. It can be scary, you know, life-threatening. This is like why you're a nurse, literally to save lives when it comes to codes. But if you work together with your coworkers, everything should be fine. And just remember, you're a nurse, you got this. Your coworkers are certified too. You guys have it, you can do it, and it will be okay. And obviously things don't always work out how we want it to. That's just part of life. but like I said, it's just one of those things. So I feel like I'm just rambling on now and repeating myself, but if you have any questions, be sure to leave them down in the comment section below. And I hope you all have a lovely day. Bye.